I now request Mr. Nikhil Meswani, Executive Director, Reliance Industries Limited, to deliver keynote address on emerging world of oil to chemicals and sustainability challenges and opportunity. Mr. Nikhil Meswani joined Reliance in 1986, and since July 1st, 1988, he has been a whole-time director designated as Executive Director on the board of the company. He is primarily responsible for petrochemical division and has made major contributions towards Reliance becoming a global leader in petrochemicals. He has been honored by the Institute of Economic Studies, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Textile Association, Ministry of Textiles. He was named a young global leader by World Economic Forum and remains an active participant in the activities of the forum. He is a member of Board of Trade, Ministry of Commerce, Government of India. May I now request Mr. Nikhil Meswani to deliver his keynote address, please.
Very good morning. It is always a pleasure to be here one more time. At the 16th edition, all I can tell you that I owe coming here to two very special people. My, of course, industry colleague, but a very close and a dear friend, Rajan Mariwala, and Bimal Bhai, who persuaded me to cancel my trip to Antarctica to deliver this address. It's always good to be with captains of the industry, friends, but it's always a pleasure to be here in the presence of the torchbearer of our industry and our guide, our secretary, Shri Arun Barokaji, Shrikar Reddy, other joint secretaries, dignitaries on the dais, my friend Eric, Chris, whom I have met today, and all the people in the audience from whom I have learned about chemical industry. A very warm welcome to all of you. We are at the onset of Holi, and my best wishes to you and each one of you and your families to have a better and a brighter year as we light that bonfire next week. Our industry is today at a crossroad. Chemical industry is the essential foundation that every industry is built upon. I call it the industry of things because 96% of the world's manufacturing involves chemicals in one way or the other. Our day-to-day lives, our comforts, each one of our aspirations, each one of the new things that we want or the family wants is all consisting of chemicals. Chemicals improve in that sense our day-to-day lives. If you look at the industry, it has progressed from essentialities of roti, kapda, makan to making sure that we today contribute to advances in technology. Eric just covered agriculture, and agrochemicals is increasing agriculture yield, food preservatives, taste enhancers, and increasing shelf life. Lifesavers, we have all seen in COVID years what pharma industry has done, which is all part of chemicals. Our telecom and internet would not work but for the use of specialty chemicals. And innovative polymers are become ubiquitous to transportation, healthcare, communication, entertainment, and consumer goods, all of which we need to make our lives better and brighter. Chemical industry thus is the industry of things. If we look at this, if we look at the year before, after enjoying a post-pandemic boom, 22 was fundamental and extremely tumultuous. There was easing of supply chain constraint, but there was huge pressure on our feedstocks and energy security at one side, destruction of demand in Europe and China, and massive gas shortages that has posed new challenges, many companies fighting for survival. At the same time, sector continues to face significant medium and long-term challenges. There are skill shortages. As we look at growth, we also need to look at decarbonization. We need to make sure that our industry is contributing to a safer and a better world, to a world where we are environmentally friendly, the one which we have always done as an enabler. The uncomfortable truth is putting this sector under a huge scrutiny by regulators, investors, consumers, and activists. And we need to make sure that we communicate bolder to make sure that we are the solution provider, we are not the polluter. As we go to crude to chemicals, all I can tell you, having started my journey in fibers, not even chemicals, like Eric, with DuPont being the first company with which we started, that our journey is actually from chemicals to oil. And today, the world has realized why that journey needs to inverse itself from crude to chemicals. Environmental concerns on carbon emission, increasing penetration of electric vehicles, and gains in energy efficiency will lead to diminishing demand for transportation fuels. As Mr. Yamini used to say, that the world will move from Stone Age not because there are no stones, and the world will move from Oil Age not because there is no oil. I can tell you that the world will move because our consumer preferences will go to the electronic age. And every single child, every single son and daughter of each one of us will demand to have an electric vehicle. And that is going to change the human behavior. Fuel markets will therefore only grow at about 1% at the most, and the oil demand is expected to peak by the end of this decade. Gasoline demand will be the first to be impacted, not only because we need better, brighter, lighter cars, but because of PV, LCV switches, and making sure that there are electric vehicles. Who would have thought that both the major car manufacturers would launch their electric vehicles in India in this very year? While chemical demand continues to grow roughly at GDP, and in countries like India, much faster than the GDP, I think that demand is going to grow in the future at 3 times faster rate, aided by the feedstocks, which is the oil industry. This will mean that 70% of the new oil demand may be actually driven by chemicals. If you looked at traditional refineries, they would have 10% as chemicals. When I used to look at Koyali refinery as a child, I would always admire them, saying, boss, they make 10% chemicals. And that model has evolved from there to about 30, and today about 40 to 50%. I believe tomorrow's refinery will become a feedstock refinery for chemicals with over 70% yield of chemicals, and in that sense, truly adopting what BASF said, verbund, but in a different way. Several oil and refining giants across the globe are working towards this to make sure that the yields are up to 70%. This will define the process completely differently and will make sure it will be green and environmentally friendly with lower temperatures and pressures. Sustainability is the need of the hour. Sustainability and circularity are most important mega trends in the future. We cannot ignore them, we need to embrace them. There are inherent challenges that chemical industry and more particularly plastics face because of limited resources on one side, non-biodegradability, leakages from landfill and ocean floors and waterbeds that we are very, very familiar with. Mounting pressure from regulators, NGOs and customers is putting this at the center of attention. India has already done its bit by making sure that in PET, our recycling rate at 90% is the highest in the world. However, this is mechanical recycling, and I am sure with the plastic waste management rules that are notified, we will not lag behind, even in commodity plastics. It is going to be a challenge where medical science advances are going to be used for diagnostics of sorting out plastics to make sure that the world will change. It is imperative that an industry will start becoming far more resource efficient on the back of this and will have a circular approach. Innovations in mechanical and chemical recycling will change the way the world works, and in particularly, I think India will work because we will have no baggage of past practices. As you are seeing with now towns in Chennai, Hyderabad, and of course Indore. It is estimated that this circular economy will pose an opportunity and will lead to economic benefits in excess of 4.5 trillion for the world. If we look at decarbonization, the world looks at it as a challenge. We look at it as an opportunity. And let me first give you as an example. Decarbonization will lead to fertilizer, which is in huge shortage in India. Decarbonization can make the acetic acid molecule, which is a huge shortage in India. So, friends, it is for us to look at 100,000 constraints and say this can't be done. But I can tell you, if we look at chemical industry in the right way, we can say this is an opportunity to grow even better, faster and bigger. Chemicals, therefore, are going to play a huge role in CCUS. Moving to a low-carbon economy is going to make sure that the use of chemicals is actually going to increase. We are going to bring carbon back to the ground from where fossil fuels were made. And I think the world will become a better place to live in if we put each element, mass and energy, in its right place. It will become more breathable, more interesting, and more natural. And it will lead to a greener and a better world. Most commodities, versus specialties, have several players driven in valuations for the past 10 years. We need to make sure that as we become greener in our processes, less energy intensive in our processes, and make sure that this is recognized as a line in our balance sheet to improve our valuation and to make sure that we tell the world we care by a true solution provider. That is indeed going to make sure that we do societal good as we focus on cash flows in the future. If you look at India, India's Amrit Kal has arrived, in the words of our Honorable Prime Minister. India has surpassed UK as the 5th largest economy in the world and is on the back of the very strong domestic demand. It in fact remains the powerhouse of growth for the world as the world slows down further in 2023. Under the strong and authoritative leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister, our well-targeted policy mix, accompanied by major structural reforms, are going to make sure that we have everything that we need from the government, including the PLIs for critical industries. I think on the back of that, India's GDP and per capita income over the next 20 years will increase tenfold. And you know, none of this can be done without chemicals. That is the opportunity that stands before us, and we need to just look at the sector and embrace that. Today, India is the only economy in the world that has the potential to join the coveted league of US and China, which is the 10 trillion economy mark. Manufacturing sector is going to grow at over 15%, and 96% of that involves chemicals, whether it is commodity, which is what I call more of the same, specialties and value-added chemicals, or chemicals of the future, which I'll cover shortly. India's manufacturing sector in that sense is the cusp of a structural shift, and it is expected to make sure that all global companies will come to India on the back of China Plus One. What is India's opportunity? India's GDP will be about 10 trillion by 2030-35, third largest in the world by 2030. Our chemical industry is about 180 billion today, and depending on the product that we speak about, each product can double or triple itself in this very timetable. Can you imagine a country that requires one world-scale cracker every year? A country that requires probably millions of tons of polyester each year? A country that requires millions of tons of chains to be developed based on polyurethane, polycarbonate, which are not even present in this country today? Our per capita consumption of chemicals is about a tenth of the world. In some products, it is a third of the global average, and in nowhere else, it is even half of the world average. The only way we can go is up. And I think it is for us to make sure that we have the cost curve to penetrate to that middle class and the rising aspirations. Currently, India is a net importer of chemicals, and it is now the third largest item on our trade bill. That itself will make sure that we will always have the opportunity. We simply need to analyze that data and integrate ourselves with the downstream to make sure our margins are preserved, which are posing a threat out of the cyclicity and volatility of our industry. Indian chemical industry will strongly benefit from China Plus One, its comparative advantage, our focus on quality, and our human talent. So if we look at that, our swelling middle class, their rising income and aspirations will drive the demands for commodity and specialties. I have tried in this slide to elaborate them end use by end use, chemicals by chemicals. India will more than double its capacity of commodities and maybe triple its capacity of specialties, which have already grown in healthy double digits. India is also a net exporter of several specialties, beginning from agrochem and dyes, but I believe these will be required in even bigger numbers in India. It is an opportune time for our Indian specialty players to focus on R&D, build stronger solutions, and make sure that the emerging needs on sustainability, nutrition, and hygiene are met with our talent, which is next to none. Specialty chemical, therefore, has the potential to outperform, as we have seen with several individual examples in the last 5 years. If we look at our emerging technologies and the emerging end uses, whether it be renewable, future of mobility, electronics, excuse me, diagnostics, or biotechnology, these breakthroughs in science are evolving faster than ever before. Can you all believe that the iPhone 13 or 14 that you use has that much data and computing power as the first satellite and the rocket that went to the moon? None of us would believe that today, but it's a truth and reality. Consumers are looking for products and services that makes their lives better, efficient, more rewarding, aligned to their lifestyles, values, and aspirations. Rising standards of living, embracing green approach will drive demand for each one of this. This will stand at the cusp of inorganic and organic chemistry, and in that sense, we need to partly go back to academia to make sure that our inorganic chemistry is rebrushed in our head compared to the organic chemistry which we are so used to, because of the fact that the world is going to demand all the new end uses based on them. It is this transition that is going to define the challenges as we embrace 3 mega trends: organic to inorganic chemistry, creating value out of inert gases, making sure that we have a greener and sustainable world, and making sure we have a digitized world that will do everything at a much faster pace than we ever imagined. The next 20 years will therefore see a leap forward, and therefore the value it will create will surpass the last industrial revolution. That alone poses an enormous opportunity for our industry. So, in conclusion, chemical industry represents material of things and is a key solution provider. It is not a polluter. Atmanirbhar Bharat is an opportunity to grow the industry and multiply ourselves, maybe grow at least 2 to 3 times on the back of India opportunity. This growth from oil to chemicals is in a decarbonized and a sustainable world. It is a world where we will have the benefit of China Plus One, where we can create alliance with our downstream, remove our volatility of the industry, and grow even faster. This opportunity will no longer be by pure technology. It will be either by the research of our own people, our talent, or by joint ventures and alliances. This will be for societal good first, before we create value and before we reward our shareholders. And the Indian entrepreneurship and innovation will harness this opportunity. I can tell you, with passion and perfection, we can convert ordinary people to deliver extraordinary result. And this is the time for our industry. Thank you.